What does it mean to live a resilient life? I'm Ryan Manion. I lost my brother to war and my mom to cancer, and I've learned a lot about myself along the way. Now, as the CEO of Travis Manion Foundation, I'm on a journey to explore what it means to be resilient against life's many challenges. Join me and some incredible guests as we ask ourselves the hard questions and define what it means to struggle well. So we are here today with a really super special guest. Every year at our gala, we give out the most prestigious and important award is our If Not Me, Then Who recipient. And I'll give you a little background. This award was really modeled after the Marine Corps, the Left Witch Award. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, I am. Didn't come anywhere near it.
Yeah.
Nowhere near.
So the Left Witch Award is an award given to an exemplary Marine. And when we first planned this gala 12 years ago, it was, let's make sure that we are honoring a service member that has demonstrated what it means to live by If Not Me, Then Who, both in uniform and outside of uniform. And so every year for 12 years, we have been taking a lot of time to identify who that person is going to be. And this year was Marine Corps veteran Matt Howard. And I now have him here in person at the Resilient Life. Matt, welcome.
Thank you, Ryan. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah.
Really great.
I can tell you that, and I think I already told you this, but the day after our gala, the day after you spoke, I got a text from one of our donors that had bought a table at the gala, and he said, I have to tell you that Matt Howard's speech has changed my life. Wow. And I do not think that he was the only person in that room that felt that way.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So before we get into it, and I don't normally come with a folder of notes, just so you know, this is actually very atypical for me to come with my folder of notes, but there's so much I want to touch on and I don't want to miss anything. But before we kind of dive into everything, the one thing I did want to share is that this is our 100th episode of the Resilient Life podcast.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
What an honor.
Yeah. And so, we had done a lot of back and forth as a team on what our 100th episode was going to look like. And, there was a lot of, we've got to get the biggest name we've ever gotten, right? And go out. Then it was, let's do a solo episode and reflect. And then it was, let's have Matt Howard.
Wow.
And I think there is some real significance in having you here for our 100th episode. You are the only TMF Spartan that we've ever recorded with.
Wow.
And I think, to be here and talk about your journey and our journey together through TMF, there literally could be nothing better than having you as our 100th episode.
Thank you so much for that. There's nowhere else I'd rather be right now.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So let's start with a little background.
Yeah.
Because you have a pretty incredible story of your time in service, and I'd love for you to share with our viewers a little bit about what you did in the Marine Corps, because it's pretty extraordinary. So before we kick off into everything, I'd love for you to share a little bit about your background in the Marine Corps and what you did, because it's pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. I came into the Marine Corps out of the Virginia Military Institute in 1987. I actually tried to get admitted to the Naval Academy and got shut down unceremoniously because I was a kind of a 2.0 guy. I wasn't a big athlete. I had nothing going for me other than Naval Academy would be pretty cool. But I wound up going to VMI.
Let me stop you there.
Yeah.
Why did you try? What was your thought process as a high school kid? I want to go to the Naval Academy and ultimately VMI. You knew that the military was your path.
I was pretty sure the military was my path. My dad was in the Navy in World War II, PT boats in the Pacific. And then he went to Harvard on the GI Bill, class of 1950, got a telegram from the government, hey, got this thing in Korea going on, come on back. So he went back and served during the Korean War on a carrier. And then my brother, who is 2 years older than me, entered the Navy, and he became an ECMO, electronic countermeasures officer, backseater in the EA-6B. So, and my dad never pushed us that way. But it just seemed like, dumb Matt, I'll just do what my brother did. Oh, Naval Academy, yeah, well, why not? And then when I got shot down, I ended up going to a military prep school in New Jersey that no longer exists, try to get my SAT scores up. It was not a particularly successful endeavor. And then I ended up going to the University of Tennessee for a year in Knoxville, which frankly was a waste of time. But I had a buddy from a previous life at that prep school who had gone to VMI. And somehow I got back in touch with him. And it's not a place I really wanted to go, but I went and visited the place, and I knew there was something in me. I knew that I needed to go. Yeah. I needed that boot up the butt to get a kickstart. And at that point, I decided I wanted to become a Marine. And I figured this is where I need to go. So that's why VMI.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you leave VMI, you join the Marine Corps, straight from there. Yeah. And what are you doing? What year is that?
87. Graduated in 87. And fortunately, I had a flight contract. So as long as I successfully completed the basic school, and didn't put my eye out or anything like that, I would go to flight school, which I did. Fortunately, I just had a good aptitude and did really well, and was able to select my pipeline. I chose helos. There's a long story behind that, which, the wave top is, if you're going to be a Marine aviator, to me, it's about being with the grunt. Yeah. And that means being in a helicopter. And I didn't regret that decision once in 20 years of service. And I got winged in 1989 and learned how to fly the CH-46, which was my airframe. God bless it. Now retired. But from there, I went to Hawaii, a full tour there with deployments to Okinawa, basically, unit deployment program, and just kept flying. That's kind of what I wanted to do. I went to the Marines Aviation Schoolhouse. It's called MOTS 1. It's sort of like the Marines version of Top Gun. My second tour, I was an instructor there for 3 years. And then I should have gone and done a ground job or gone to a school or done something else. I just wanted to fly. I went back to a squadron on the West Coast and deployed out of there with the 15th MU. And then by that time, when that tour was up, I'm 10 years in, I'm a major now, and it's time to go do other things. I didn't want to go do other things. I wanted to fly. Yeah. So my really only path to continue flying was to apply to HMX, the Presidential Helicopter Squadron, because if they say we want this guy, they get that guy.
Yeah, sure.
So that was a way for me to stay in the cockpit, which everybody thinks, well, you wanted the prestige and all that.
You just wanted to fly.
I wanted to fly.
Yeah.
And thankfully, I got into the squadron and, did okay there. And basically, that takes us up to year 17.
So what was that like the first time you get on the Presidential Squadron?
Yeah.
Right? Do you remember the first time you flew the president?
Oh, vividly.
Tell us about it.
Well, so there's a stair-step approach, right? It's iterated. It's not like you show up and you're a Marine One pilot. Congratulations. Yeah. It's a multi-step, multi-year process to get to that level. But you have flown as a Marine One co-pilot numerous times, into the South Lawn, marriage with Air Force One. You've done that a number of times. But I do distinctly remember the first time, and as in the Marine One syllabus, you fly with the CO of the squadron, and you're basically acting like you're in charge, and you're going to the South Lawn, and you're going and doing things. But the first time I actually went into the South Lawn as the Marine One to pick up the boss.
Who was president?
At the time, it was President Bush.
Okay.
I distinctly remember as we're coming over the fountain, hitting the numbers to land on the lawn, as you pull power to arrest your rate of descent, you have to feed left pedal in anti-torque, and it was a manual helicopter. You really got to push on that pedal to keep straight. And my leg started shaking. And I said, hey, get a hold of yourself and just do what you're supposed to. Yeah, it was. My leg started to shake, and I said, oh, come on, man. And I made it stop and did an uneventful landing. But yeah, that first time, there was that moment that I'll never forget.
Yeah.
Fortunately, it went well.
That's awesome. And what was it like? Because again, I mean, you just saw President Bush at Carter's funeral, and he's just like, and I've had the opportunity to meet him several times, and you know, he's just kind of that guy where he's like I could see him walking in, giving you the fist pump, like, you know, that's just the kind of guy he is.
Same guy, off camera, on camera.
Yeah.
2:00 in the morning at Andrews in the rain is one guy. Beautiful day into the South Lawn, same guy.
Yeah.
Always the same routine. He would always come into the cockpit, a little bump on the shoulder of the Marine One. How's it going? Very, very personable guy. And Laura was exactly the same way, just, you know, regular Joes. And actually, the first time President Bush came on the helicopter when I was in there, he came up and I said, welcome aboard, Mr. President, you know, shook his hand. And he said, it's my honor. And I thought, oh, hold on a minute. No. It's our honor. Yeah. This is your stuff. This is what you get now. We're the ones who are honored to fly you. But that's just emblematic of the guy. He was just this, you know, laid back. And he was also a stickler for schedule, which we loved.
Yeah.
Because you're always burning fuel, and you know, you've only got so much. He really was on time too. So it was just a really nice guy.
What was, over the course of your career flying helos, what was the scariest situation you were ever in?
There were a few CASEVAC missions out of TQ going into Fallujah. Mm-hmm. I went over in 2005 after HMX. There were a few hairy situations there, but it's one of the core things about helicopters, crewed helicopters, when you're going to go pick up a wounded Marine, that it really does get in here, and you end up taking risks that you have to balance that. But it's a very difficult dilemma to be in. Where do I risk the airplane and everyone in it to go save this one guy? Or, you know, do I let that guy bleed out and all of us are okay? It's a horrible position to be in, but when you're on a casualty evacuation like that, if it's contested or if it's not a friendly environment that you're going into, that's what kind of runs through your head. So there were some missions that, you know, I'm glad I didn't do a lot of times, but there were a few times, particularly the daylight ones, when, you know, you're just naked.
Yeah.
Where, you know, you're going. Yeah. And you have support, you know, a Cobra and a Huey or a section of Cobras or a mixed section, but, you know, there's only so much they could do. But, yeah, that was probably the scariest.
Yeah. So let's talk about the most important flight of your life, or I would imagine that it is. It's the one that you've shared. Yeah. I've heard you share it many times. And that was flying President Bush to Ground Zero.
Yeah. The 14th of September, 2001.
Tell us about that day.
Well, he wanted to go sooner. And, you know, his staff was telling boss, this is not a good idea. We wanted to go the next day. And it's like, but you only tell him no so many times.
Right.
So on the 14th, you know, the conga line goes, and he flew Air Force One to, I guess it was McGuire, New Jersey. So we picked him up there and took about a 30-minute ride. And we go into this place called, I don't know what to call it, the New York helipad. It's a really nice pad on the East River, blocks from Ground Zero. And it's got 6 spots. So you go in there, and I remember when we turned the corner at Sandy Hook to go towards Manhattan, the smoke coming up. And it was a brilliant, clear blue day, just like 9/11 was. And I remember that got inside my head. You know, I'd seen the smoke rising from the Pentagon on 9/11. I flew on 9/11 in D.C., saw that then. But now with him going to Manhattan, seeing the smoke rise, it really did. It got on my head. And I just, thinking about what that smoke is coming from and the loss that we incurred.
Yeah.
And at that point, I realized, hey, get your head about you. You've got a helicopter to land here. And we took him in to the pad, and off he went.
What was that flight like? Like when he got on? I mean, he wasn't giving you the fist pump that day. Like,
No, it was all about let's just get there.
Who else was on the flight?
Oh, I don't remember, but it was the usual package. He would have had.
There wasn't anybody like unusual.
No. Chief of staff, some staffers, and then the Greenside assets, the CH-46 had the usual gaggle of press, Secret Service. It was a pretty standard package, but it was just all about, no sightseeing. Let's just get there, and let him do his thing. But after that, when he came back, it was after dusk, and it was not dark yet, but kind of pinky time. And we took off to the north from the pad and made an arcing left turn around Ground Zero. And I remember still looking down there at that, and all, the spotlights are still on it. Smoke is still coming up and steam, and just thinking I'm looking into the pit of hell. Wow. Unforgettable. Yeah. In not a good way.
Yeah. And then how many days later is it that you kind of do something that is widely viewed as, the moment where we were like, we're in this together, which was President Bush throwing out that first pitch, right?
We took him back to the Bronx. It was night flight, as I remember. Yeah, because it was the night game. Diamondbacks, Yankees. And the gaggle lands, and he leaves, and we do what the Marine pilots are really good at, which is stand around and do nothing.
Yeah,
we're exceptionally skilled at that. So you just stand around, and we have our White House liaison guys who are all mic'd up, calmed up, and normally they're on the Secret Service net, so we know where he is at every moment, so that we can be prepared. When he comes back, because he doesn't wait on us. We wait on him, so we always know from our White House liaison guy where he is. But we didn't need that, because when he walked onto the field, and we were less than a quarter mile from the stadium, when he walked onto the field, the sound that came out of that crowd, to this day, the goosebumps pop up, because it was just incredible. It wasn't just loud. It was this guttural, visceral roar that just came out of that stadium. And when you watch that on YouTube, it's like, such a powerful moment. For that 1 second, there's no Republicans, Democrats.
Right.
There's whatever the capacity of New York Yankee Stadium is. Everybody just levitated up as one and howled and said, that's our commander in chief. We're all in.
Well, and you often hear too, and gosh, I remember it, like this idea. You'll hear it when we're in real divisive times as a nation. It's like, remember September 11th, but it's like, remember September 12th, right? And if you were too young to remember or not alive, there's a lot of people that just weren't alive at that time.
Right.
But you remember how united we felt as a country. And that moment was like pivotal, right? To say, like, despite everything we're going through, we're not going to be scared of the enemy. Like, the president is walking out. Yeah. He's going to throw out this first pitch.
From the mound. He's not thrown from the grass.
Yeah.
Because Jeter told him, if you do it from the grass, they'll boo you.
Yeah,
this is Yankee Stadium. You got to get on the mound.
Yeah.
Which he did.
But you think about that, and just to imagine, there you are, a half a block away.
Yeah.
And you can hear that roar.
Incredible. And it filled me with a sense of resolve that I still hold today. I really do.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you had such a tremendous career in the Marine Corps, and you leave, you retire after 20 years of service. What did that feel like? And I'll share this with you. You know, I think there was early on, I think that notion has changed, but I think early on when veteran service organizations were popping up in this post 9/11 time, when we were talking about the need to support veterans, I think in a lot of ways, many people thought, especially with the transition piece, it was, hey, we got to make sure that we're supporting our enlisted because the officers will be fine. And the officers don't really need to latch on to VSOs. That's, you know, that notion has completely changed.
Yeah.
But I remember early on, because we had a lot of officers that were a part of our organization early on. And they'd say, well, how many enlisted guys are you helping? And we were, but people were kind of like, why do you need to help officers? Why do you need to support officers? What kind of support are they needing? And so I'd love to know kind of how you were feeling as you were transitioning out. Like, what was going through your head? What were you thinking that transition was going to look like? And frankly, what did that beginning transition look like for you?
It was kind of terrifying, actually. I was basically 3 months from getting out, and I had nothing lined up.
Yeah.
Because I was still wrestling with what I wanted to do, and I wanted to do something in the recreational boat world. I'm a boat guy. I've been a boat guy my whole life. I'm in the industry now, but as I'm getting ready to step off after 20 years, it's not like you can just flip a switch and suddenly I'm a yacht broker or a naval architect. You know, just that doesn't happen overnight. So I was really struggling with that. I was in a existential type A crisis of why can't I figure out what I'm going to do? And this is what I tell people now. You just got to give yourself some grace. Yeah. And the longer you've been in, the harder it is. Don't expect that after a life of 20, 30 years of every day of that life being told where to be, what to do, and what to wear. Every day of your life, to think that you can just automatically know, oh, okay, when I get out, I'm going to go do this. It's a leap. It's too much of a stretch, and it's unfair to ask yourself to demand an answer to that question. You've got to just give yourself some headspace, find a job, even if it's not something that you really are fired up about doing, you know, pay the bills, pay the mortgage, support the family. Take a breath and then, you know, figure out what you wanted to do, which I'd love to say in retrospect, I had that all planned out, you know, Ryan. I did not have any of that planned out. But 30 days out, I get a bolt out of the blue phone call from a buddy who's working in the Pentagon. And the irony of that is I swore, I'm not going to the Pentagon. I'm never working in the Pentagon.
Yeah.
And for 20 years, I didn't work in the Pentagon. I went in the building twice, briefing reporters how NVGs worked. And then I went up to brief some journal about something at one point. Only times I'd ever been in the Pentagon. And now I'm about to get out, and I realized, you know, in 30 days, Uncle Sam stops paying me, and I'm in a world of shit.
And they're like, hey, you can come to the Pentagon.
And what I call, hey, it's a contract support position, aviation, headquarters Marine Corps, your ops experience, you're a perfect fit. What do you think? So I put my tail between my legs, and I said, yeah, okay. So I went to work in the Pentagon. Yeah. That was my transition. But from that respect, it was pretty easy because, you know, the Marine Corps is small to begin with.
Right.
The Marine Corps aviation is a smaller chunk of that already small piece of the pie. And then the area that I was working in was basically, I knew everybody there. I was just, you know, in a suit instead of in uniform. So it was a pretty easy transition from that standpoint.
Employment-wise.
Yeah. Yeah, but
not to put words in your mouth.
No, but yeah. Like, so, okay, the groceries are going to get paid for, and you know, mortgage is paid, and we're going to be okay. But you know, inside that job had there was nothing personally fulfilling about that job.
Yeah, you transition okay, employment wise.
Yeah.
You're still kind of like, I mean, and you have to think about that, and you make a really good point, and I think that's. You know, you were told what to do for 20 years.
Your entire life.
And not only that, you went to VMI. So add another 4 years
Yeah.
on, because you go to a service academy, they tell you what to
Right.
do there too.
Right.
So literally your entire adult life, you've
Yeah.
been told what to do.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you're supposed to figure out
Yeah.
like, you know, what to do without anybody telling you.
Right.
And that has to be like, you're just kind of like stripped of everything that you knew.
Yeah.
You know? When was the first time you decided like, I'm going to get involved with a veteran service organization? And what did that look like?
It took me a while to do that because I was mostly trying to think about, how do I get out of this Pentagon job? How do I transition to the boat world I keep telling everybody I'm going to do? How does how does that work? And I did, I was associated with Team RWB for a while, did some volunteer leading with great organization, enjoyed the time. But then I kind of got away from that. I was doing other things. So there was quite a gap before becoming involved with TMF. But there was always that itch. And I tell people, once you've taken the oath and worn the cloth, it doesn't matter if it was for 4 years or for 40. That need, that itch to serve, it never goes away. So it's just a matter of finding what the right fit, for you as an individual is.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk about how you found TMF.
Yeah.
Because I actually did not know until my team shared with me the first event you went to TMF, and I was there.
We met briefly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I knew nothing about TMF, other than maybe I'd heard of it.
Uh-huh.
But in May, early May of 2021, I saw it on Instagram, I think.
Okay.
The Honor Project, Arlington National Cemetery, TMF, and this is what we're going to do. And I looked at it and thought, that's a really cool idea. Place these little plaques on the gravestones for behalf of relatives that can't be there. What a classy thing to do. So I talked to Darcy about it. I said, yeah, let's go check it out. And so the day of, it's pouring rain.
Terrible.
We're thinking, oh, this is going to be a bust.
Torrentially downpouring.
We signed up, so we suited up and we trudged our way over to Section 60. And there you were in the staff, and just a few hundred people, I want to say, showed up.
Yeah.
And you kicked it off, and then we all got our plaques, and we tromped around Arlington. But there was something about that, the power in the simplicity of that. Mm-hmm. Taking the time to go visit these headstones, say their names, place the token, take a picture for that comfort for those relatives that would get that picture via the database, and to know that on or around Memorial Day their loved one was remembered and their name was spoken and their stories were read about.
Yeah. There
was something so extremely powerful about that when we got back in the car to go driving home, I said, I think there's something about this organization. It's an organization that does that. It's an organization that I want to be a part of.
That's so cool.
That was a start. Yeah.
And I remember that day too, because again, it wasn't just like raining.
No,
it was
a downpour.
It was a downpour. The sky was dark.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to my team, I'm like, no one's showing up. And I can tell you, in all honesty, if I had signed up for that, I didn't know the group, but I was like, this looks cool, and I had signed up to her, and I woke up that morning, I would have been like, I'll join them next year.
You would have gone.
And thank you, I appreciate that. But I'm not sure I would have. I'm like, and we were standing out there, and I remember when I was speaking to the crowd, and that was the other thing. I got there, and I'm like, oh my God, look, everybody came out.
Yeah, you can see they're just all coming from the parking
area
over.
And I remember when I was talking and I was sharing with everybody, like, the meaning behind the Honor Project and why we were doing this. And I was worried people couldn't hear me because it was raining that hard.
Yeah.
But it was an awesome day. And for us, and that was the first year. You were there not only for the first year, but at the first cemetery. The first actual, now we're at dozens and dozens of cemeteries across the country.
Right.
But that was the first cemetery and event that we ever held for the Honor Project, and you were there for that.
Yeah, it's wicked cool.
When I found out, I was like, oh my gosh, Matt was there.
Yeah.
So you leave and you decide that you're more interested in TMF. What do you do next?
I got on the website, got home, got on the website, and read the history of the foundation and looked at, I'm a detail guy.
Yeah, good.
I looked at all the staff, the board, read everything I could on the website, and read about Character Does Matter. And I thought that's something I need to get into. At my core, I am an introvert. The analysis shows that when you do the little quizzes. So that's a stretch for me to get up in front of kids. I'd never done that before, never done anything like that before. But I thought, all right, just stretch the envelope and sign up for that. And I did. I signed up for the CDM online. A Character Does Matter mentor training online, and then I got sick and had to put that on hold.
So 2 weeks roughly after you show up and volunteer at the Honor Project, you're diagnosed with stage 4 cancer.
Yeah.
How much you want to share about that?
I'm happy to share all of it. The upshot of it is I had been feeling poorly for a long time, and I really couldn't put my finger on, anything specific. I wasn't in pain. It was not like I didn't have shortness of breath. But I just felt like ass for a long time. And then it was probably a week after the Honor Project. Out of nowhere, I vomited. Like, what? 20 plus years since I'd thrown up. My wife, Darcy, had never seen me. And we thought, okay,
that's not normal.
Something is wrong. We went to the ER at Fort Belvoir on June 8th, right? Yeah. And I checked in, and it's, the ridiculous COVID rules are still in effect, so Darcy has to go home. So I'm back there alone and took some blood, and all of my numbers are just whacked in the wrong direction. And the attending is like, we're gonna do a midsection MRI and just kind of see what there is to see. And I'll never forget it. He came back and came into the room and didn't say a word, and he went to the side of the bed and he gripped the rail.
And you're there by yourself.
Yeah. And he said, "You have a mass in your bladder. It's probably cancerous. I would love to tell you that it's not." His name was Dr. French, a really respectable, straight up guy. He said, "I'd love to tell you something different, but 9 times out of 10, that's what this is. That's why you're so sick. Your urine is backing up into your kidneys. You are entering acute renal failure right now.
Oh my God.
And we are going to send you to Walter Reed. If you end up needing dialysis or whatever else, they're better equipped up there." And they had an ambulance there, and by now it's like 10 o'clock at night. And I thought, and he said, "We're going to go make those arrangements." And he leaves the room. So I'm sitting there with that. And I thought, okay, well, number one, bad news doesn't get better with age. So I thumbed a text to Darcy. I said, "This is what they said." And there's a mirror right across from the bed, and the mirror with the sink. And I'm looking in there, and I'm thinking, I had a very clear realization. You could say it was, God reaching in or whatever, but it was extremely clear. And I looked in the mirror and I said, "There's nothing I can do about this right now. But I can decide how I'm going to react." And I looked in that mirror and I said, "I'm going to be a cheerful warrior, no matter what." And that's what I've tried to do every day since. I'm not always successful at it, and cheerful was a carefully chosen word, not happy. Happy. Mm-hmm. Happy is a response to a stimulus. Cheerful is a choice. And I felt like, okay, that's what I can control. That's all I can control. And then I was at Walter Reed by midnight, and less than 12 hours later, I was in the OR under the knife of this incredibly talented Doogie Howser type urologist. His name is Justin Maggott. We are friends to this day. Unfortunately, he had to move out of the area. Wonderful family, but he went in there and roto-rootered that shit out of there. Got all the biopsies needed, And then we did all the scans, and that's when, okay, the verdict comes in. Well, okay, so you have a very malignant cancer, Gleason 5-5, for those of you that know what that is. It's malignant. It has grown from the prostate into the bladder, and it's also in your hips and your surrounding lymph nodes. So that's what all the scans and biopsies return with. And then it's, all right, we've got to stage you, and you're stage 4, because that's where you are in sort of the triage of the world of cancer. So the next step then was to come up with the treatment protocol, and we talked about all the options. But the running gag became, because once they got to know my sense of humor a little bit, they said, aside from this whole stage 4 cancer thing, you're actually a pretty healthy guy.
Yeah.
So we
outside of that,
you're in pretty good shape. So we went for a very aggressive.
Which is important, because that plays a determinant on what your treatment plan can look like.
Huge.
Yeah.
So this is not something we went with it's a cocktail, really, infusion, but the principal element in there is a stuff called docetaxel, and it's really, really powerful.
Yeah.
So we planned a 6-month cycle of chemo, with that being the principal ingredient, and then we also overlap that with a quarterly injection of the stuff called leuprolide. It's adrenal deprivation therapy, and I have done that every 3 months since then, and will do it every 3 months for the rest of my life, barring some miracle cure for cancer. But as bad as chemo sucked, and man, it sucks, it was tremendously effective.
Yeah.
But as we were on that treatment path, once sort of the dust has settled and we were doing this, I had to sit down with the oncologist. I said, I got to ask you the hard questions. She said, yeah, go ahead. I said, based on what we know now, if this treatment goes as well as it can go, can I live, say, 10 years? She said, no, flat out. I said, okay.
And now, are you sitting there with Darcy when
Yes.
you're asking?
Yes.
So she's sitting next
She
to
knows,
you.
and I've told her that I'm going to ask these questions.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, can I live 5 years? And she hedged slightly and said, it's not likely. So that's what the data say. And I really appreciated then what she was doing there, which was just being very, very clear about, this is what the data say for your prognosis.
Yeah.
A small percentage will make it 3 years. Well, that's over 3 years ago.
Here you are.
Here I am.
You're looking damn good, too.
That's very kind. So that you have some very fundamental choices to make when you are told that.
See, I think about that, and I try to imagine what I would do if faced in that situation, and I would ask those questions.
Yeah.
I know my mom, when she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, she did not ask those questions. I don't think she wanted to know, because I think, almost like me, I don't know if a doctor placing a timeline, right? Essentially, they're giving you the timeline based off of data off other patients, obviously, who have had your type of cancer. But if a doctor said to me, are you going to live 5 years? Am I going to live 5 years? And the doctor says, probably not. I think that I would not, I don't know that I'd have the, I'm trying to think of the right word. Like, I don't know that I would have the strength to feel like I could fight that timeline. Like, I think I would accept that timeline.
No, you wouldn't.
I don't know.
No, you wouldn't. Because you have to be told it. It has to be real first.
Yeah.
It's like guys going into combat. I hope I'm not a coward. You only find out when you go.
Yeah.
And when you're there and it's happening, you find out. And you're gonna rise to the occasion, because there are no extraordinary people. There are just people put in sometimes extraordinarily bad positions, and you do what you need to do to save your buddy to your left and to your right and try to survive the day. So I hear what you're saying. I'm not sure I would have, but it's you. Well, I think you would fight it. That's the type of person that you are. But you touch on something there that is important. And one of my key messages is all the data that currently exists does not automatically determine my outcome.
Right.
It doesn't.
Right.
And there's a lot of things that are attached to cancer that result in labels, cancer especially, and all kinds of chronic illnesses. But stage 4 cancer, it's like it's on your forehead, and it's this label. And it's, oh, wow, sucks to be you. And you could easily say, well, I'll do the treatment and, hope for the best. That's not, the outcome is not predetermined. And we do not give ourselves credit for the amount of power, the amount of agency that we have over our health.
Yeah.
We have been conditioned for generations into a learned helplessness where, look no further than the fact that the United States is one of 2 countries in the world, the other being New Zealand, population 5 million. Okay. The United States and New Zealand are the only countries in the world that allow prescription drugs to be advertised on TV. And we don't even give it a second thought. It's just ubiquitous. It's constantly in our face.
I actually did not know that.
I didn't know it until I've been doing some research over the years on,
Yeah.
Trying to get my head around this thing. But one of the things is, so we were just conditioned.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sick. I need a pill.
Right.
Oh, I got this. Oh, I got to get a shot. Oh, and quite frankly, the pharmaceutical companies are happy for us to think that way. We have been conditioned to believe that the mind and the body are these sort of loosely connected things, which on the face of it is ridiculous.
Yeah.
They're in the same vessel. It's all one. And there's this tremendous body of work that's out there that I've just scratched the surface on that doesn't get enough attention because it's espousing that fact that the mind has more power over agency over our physical health than we give it credit for. And I think that's because of the conditioning that, we are subject to, but also that we're scared to realize how powerful our own agency is over our bodies.
Totally. I could not agree more. Yeah, it's so true. I say that all the time. It's like just this idea that, again, at the end of the day, we control what our health looks like. Like there are some,
100%.
there are some things that are beyond our control.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
But there is something to say for the idea that you were able to get the most potent cocktail of treatment.
Yeah.
Because had you not been taking care of yourself and doing what you needed to do and being healthy despite the cancer, right? And it is like mindset is everything.
It's critical.
It's critical. And I love how you coined this idea of happy is, say it again, happiness.
Well, happiness is a response to a stimuli,
right,
or a response to a stimulus.
But
it's easy to be happy. Well, if you're happy, God bless you. Good on you that you got some good news or something is going. It makes you happy, and that's awesome. But happiness is fleeting.
Yeah,
you're not always going to be happy. All I want to do is be happy. What happens when you get cancer? How's that working out? You have to find another way. And to me, cheerfulness is a choice. Just like, our reaction to any hardship is a choice.
Yeah.
And that it puts your mind in a position to be in a better place than just relying on the winds of happiness.
I love it. Okay, so we meet, we volunteer together, you leave, you get diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, your obviously main focus, as it should be, is taking care of yourself.
Living, yeah.
Is living.
Yeah.
Is literally living.
Yeah.
So how does TMF come back into the fold?
I have thought a lot about this.
Yeah.
And cancer and TMF, it's like a strand of DNA. It's just they have been interweaving amongst each other to get us to where we are today. And it's a phenomenal thing to think about. And where do I start with that? Well, so once I was on the treatment path, I knew, okay, I'm not going to expire tomorrow. I got back with John Parra at the JP, who was in DC at the time. Hey, I'm ready to resume, finish the CDM, mentor.
Yeah, but you're talking to me about the technical aspect of, I contacted, John Parra, but like, I want to know about why you decided. I mean, again, I keep going back to what I think I would do, but like I would just be focused on like I'm taking care of myself, I'm internal, I'm with my family, I'm not going to be like you actually made the conscious decision to be like, oh, I remember that group, I'm going to go reach out to them again. Like, how does that happen? You know?
Because it's really important to when you're faced with something, and when I was talking earlier about the mind body thing, it's not like I don't have any illusions about what I'm facing. I know exactly what I'm facing. I have no illusions about what the data say, but it doesn't control what I do or who I am. And this is skipping ahead a little bit, but I have come to believe truly that the diagnosis has been a gift for me because, among many things, it has allowed me, number one, to realize that every day matters. It really, really does. It's just not some time-worn phrase, oh, every day matters. Yes, today matters. And tomorrow matters. Every day matters. What are you going to do with them? And for me, part of that is living with as much purpose and as much meaning as I can possibly accomplish. Yeah. So TMF, as I'm thinking about this, prostrate in bed with no hair, and I can't walk my dog halfway down the block without being exhausted, I'm thinking, this is going to be an outlet for me. This is going to be a way for me. I've already, I don't want to say drunk the Kool-Aid, it sounds horrible, but I'm already a believer because of the core mission of TMF and the secret sauce of veterans and Gold Star family members. We can get into that if you want to later, but why that's so special. But I'm already a believer in the program, so to speak, So that was always there. And so when I knew as I was getting back on my feet that TMF to me represented the path to purpose and meaning beyond just, like I said, living, fighting cancer, but there's got to be more to life than that. And TMF has given me, it's this incredible duality isn't the right word. I don't know what the word is, but it's given me both the outlet and the means to live with that purpose and that meaning. But so that's how that switch, got flipped post-diagnosis.
When my mom was diagnosed with cancer and she was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, and they basically said, again, according to statistics, it's less than a year. And it was everywhere. It was in her brain, it was everywhere. And she had surgery on a tumor. Tumor had actually broken her arm. And that's how she found out. She was completely symptomless. And she had surgery to remove that tumor, to fix the bone. They set her up with the treatment plan. She was down at Penn. She went through the surgery, did the first chemo, and then stayed in bed for a day after the chemo because, as you say, chemo is terrible, makes you really sick. And then the next day, she went to TMF and went to our office. Wow. And I remember being like, what are you doing? Yeah. And she was like, what do you mean? What am I? I'm going to work. Yeah. And I'm like, wait, you can't do that. And it was a little bit, she was like, well, what else am I going to do? You know? God and so, so I understand what you're saying about like, she still needed that purpose in her life. And for her, obviously she founded this organization. It was what gave her meaning after she lost her son. And it was what gave her meaning until she took her last breath. Yeah. I mean, and so I understand this notion of, you can't just sit in bed, you can't just sit around, wait to die, right?
Right.
You know?
No.
I mean, all of us could essentially do that. We all have an expiration date.
Yeah, we all do. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
So you decide to pick up the phone and call John Pera, one of my faves, and in the Mid-Atlantic, he was in the Mid-Atlantic region at the time. Yeah. And you call John and you get involved with Character Does Matter, our flagship program. Yep. And typically Character Does Matter is not reserved for introverts because it's a program where we need you out working with kids. Yeah. And though I love the idea that an introvert says, hey, I'm going to try this. And so what was your first engagement in the Character Does Matter program? Like what's the first group of kids you're in front of and what did that look like?
You've teed me up perfectly because I was terrified.
Yeah.
So Grace Scheich, my handler, my VIP handler, I love her to death. She was the first person I came into contact with as far as actually, building the brief, building the CDM brief for your, just to have in your kit bag. So whenever we're ready, it's got the videos, it's got the stuff, but it's also got your story, and that's going to be how we're going to do that. And then some time goes by, and she says, "Hey, I got this perfect opportunity for your first CDM." I said, "Okay." And she said, "It's 130 8 to 13-year-olds at the Cal Ripken Senior Foundation summer camp up north of Baltimore. It's a bunch of underprivileged kids that come in from all over the country, and you're going to talk to them."
Cool.
I said, "What?" But so I went up there, and I'm hundreds of feet away from the building, and I can hear all those kids in there, and I'm thinking, "Oh my God!" And I went to Grace and said, "I am so terrified. I don't have kids. I don't know how to talk to kids." And Grace said, "Just tell your story. It'll be fine."
And there's no bigger critic than
kids.
A kid.
Oh,
I mean, you'll know within the first 3 seconds. Boo! Yeah, if they don't, and if they don't like what you're serving, they're not going to listen.
They're not going to eat it.
Yeah.
No. But I got a great intro. I don't remember who introduced me, but it went fine. And it was about a 20-minute, 30, not the full blown presentation. The 45. It was. They're young. We got to shorten this up a little bit. But it went well. They listened. I actually had questions after. It gave me a tremendous sense of confidence that, for an icebreaker, Grace, I wish you would have gotten me a smaller group, like a Catholic school or something. But no, it's, 130 little hellions. But they were great. And that's what kicked it off.
So how did you feel? Because I remember when I gave my first, it wasn't Character Does Matter presentation. It was me going to Travis's high school. They'd asked me to speak about him.
Right.
And you might have heard me share this story before, but like, I remember when I left, I was like, I want to do more. Yeah. Like, I want to go out. I love this. Like, how did you feel when you walked out?
Tremendously empowered.
Yeah.
And it's tough in a large group like that. You try to make eye contact a lot. And what I do since then is I just look for one kid that is right here.
Yep.
And to me, that's success.
Yep.
If I can get one of those, and typically, hopefully it's more than just one, but when you know that you are connecting with someone and they're listening to what you're saying, that's tremendously empowering and impactful, to give me the feeling of purpose and momentum to, you got to keep doing this.
Yeah.
That's how it feels.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So from CDM, from our Character Does Matter program, you then go on to decide to apply for our Spartan Leadership Program.
Yeah.
So for those that don't know, our Spartan Leadership Program is the most intensive program that we offer at the Travis Manion Foundation. It is a true time commitment. There is a lot involved. And there are many people that I've come across, many veterans that I've interacted with that I know could benefit so much from this program. And I'll say, hey, I really think you should apply for this. And, I'll get I just have a lot going on in my life. But stage 4 cancer patient, Matt Howard, decides, I'm going to apply for the Spartan Leadership Program.
Yeah.
You get in. You're part of cohort 5.
There's no other cohort.
There is no other cohort.
It's 5.
Cohort 5 is the only cohort. What did you think going into that? Did you have an idea of what that was going to look like? Or were you just like, hey, this looks cool, I'm going to give it a shot?
I read all the material that there was to read about the Spartan Leadership Program and thought, and no, I didn't really know what it was going to look like. But I interviewed and felt like the interviews went okay. Got the news that I was accepted to the program. And it was part of me trying to practice vulnerability. And I read Brene Brown's Daring Greatly, great book. And I think I read it in 2015, 2016 when I was in the middle of a career change. I was trying to break free of the government military complex and go into the, the boat world. Anyway, the book was recommended to me, and I remember at the time reading it thinking, vulnerability. Yeah, there's probably something to that. And off I went and did my thing. But now, things change, and you have now this new mindset. And I said, I reread parts of the book, and I said, part of personal growth, without vulnerability, there is no personal growth.
Yeah.
There just isn't. And it would be easy for me to sort of withdraw, but it just wasn't and isn't the right thing to do. And I felt like SLP, well, that's another envelope stretcher. It's like okay, just put yourself out there and see what happens. And when we kicked off down in Atlanta, I just bought in. When Camille and the others were speaking about the program, it's like anything else. You're going to get out of it what you put into it.
Yep.
But the conditions are set through that program to trigger amazing personal growth. And going into it, that momentum built, and we're building this great relationship amongst the cohort. And then the middle of the program is the week in Colorado, the expedition in Colorado up at Tasha's place, which I would say is sort of the keynote, or whatever the right word is, for the program. It's a tremendously important week.
So you spend, just for those that aren't familiar, the week is with Marine Corps veteran Brian Shantosh, more affectionately known as Tosh. It's a week in Colorado, living in tents, and just having Tosh break down all his wisdom. And you talk about that word vulnerability. And I've had Tosh on a few times on the podcast, and we had a conversation about vulnerability, because I went, cohort 1, I went to Colorado for that week because I needed to see what this program was.
Right,
I needed to validate it and say, yes, this is something we should be investing money in.
Yeah.
And so I went to Colorado that week, and I shared with Tosh, I was like, Tosh, that was the first time I cried in front of people, outside of like my family. But that's the first time I like publicly cried in, I can't even tell you, and that's a real vulnerable place for me to show emotion.
Yeah.
And so I know the magic of what happens that week in Colorado. And I can only imagine that you felt it too.
It was a tremendously important thing. And the real light bulb moment for me was that the cancer story was not known outside of a pretty small circle. My family, my friends.
Did our team know at the time?
Yes. So when I applied, are you on any medications, any medical?
Oh, right.
So
yeah, you
I
had
basically
to disclose that.
disclosed all that. So
Yeah.
Camille knew, and whoever else on the staff needed to know.
But the other participants didn't know.
No one in the cohort knew. And by the time we got to Colorado, I'm sort of having a moment of reflection, thinking, really? You're not going to tell these people what's going on in your life? That flies in the face of what you're doing in this program. That's not authentic. It's a lie of omission.
Yeah.
How do you not share? And I was looking for, I realized, I need, but it was after a Toshism. It was after a talk. We did a workout with Tosh, and at the end of the workout, the endorphins are flying. And I went up to Camille and I said, Camille, I have to tell the cohort. And she knew exactly what I was talking about.
Wow.
So we all sat down at the picnic tables, and Camille said, okay, listen up. Matt's got something he needs to share with us. And I stood up and I spilled my guts. I told him the whole story. The diagnosis, the prognosis, the fact that, that can all go to hell. I'm going to outlive all of that, and that the real lesson is that every day matters more than you can possibly imagine. Yeah. But I also said that I know, and I believe this because it's true, I was where I was supposed to be, and I was with who I was supposed to be with that week in Colorado in this program to share that story. And getting that out there.
Yeah, how did that feel?
It was tremendously liberating. It was like I was keeping this secret. It's like when you lie and you have to remember the lies that you've told so that you don't. It was just, okay, it's out there. They know.
Well, there's that thing too, like secrets keep you sick. you know?
For sure. And that was part of the spurt of personal growth that I got from that, but more looking into the faces of the people I was talking to, and the fact that that story and that news and what has come from me telling that story has helped people.
Yeah.
It has been good for other people. It has led to things that would not have happened. Had I kept that bottled up, the fundraiser with the triple never would have happened.
Yeah.
Some of the projects that some of the cohort are working on never would have happened. It's just tremendously liberating, but also, it was when I knew that it was good for other people, that was my litmus test that was important to share that. It just was.
And you know what I think is so awesome about that is that you went through half the program with those participants getting to know Matt Howard, the veteran.
Yeah.
And because I do think that it would have been different if it had been like, I'm Matt Howard, Marine Corps veteran, stage 4 cancer patient. They probably would have approached you differently from the beginning, right?
I thought about that.
You know? So I think it was the right time to share that with them.
Absolutely was the right time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
I want to read a couple things from your blog that you did for the Spartan Leadership Program.
Wow, okay.
Early on in our experience, after kickoff, I began to feel I was part of something larger than myself. Not because of the pure mathematics of having 26 others in the group. There was a nascent energy in the work. In retrospect, this makes sense because all of us applied for what is, in reality, a competitive selection process. It wasn't like some chance meeting at a seminar where the group felt some good chemistry. This was already much deeper than that. With this powerful sense of belonging and purpose, I further committed myself to the process and decided to take a chance to share my story more fully with the group I had trusted, which I sensed would be cathartic. I was comfortable enough to have the courage to be vulnerable, something you were working on, reason why you got into this.
Yeah.
But beyond that, our time together has enabled a release from the strong negativity and bias I've had for most of my life. That strong bias that traces back to our earliest time as human beings, when we had to be on constant alert for predators and other things that could kill us, like exposure or starvation, lives on in me. It's a perfect companion and enabler for shyness and introversion, giving an excuse to remain guarded, to remain behind a persona that crafted to protect me. The Spartan Leadership Program has helped lay bare the futility in being that way and is no longer the way I choose to live.
I wrote that?
You did.
Wow. That's actually pretty good.
It's really good.
I remember, writing that. It just came out.
Yeah. And you ended it by saying the Colorado expedition was nothing short of a seismic event in my life. Being immersed with my teammates has lit a fire within me.
Yeah, for sure. And that's how I describe the program. It was life-changing. No, that's not enough. It was seismic.
Yeah.
It did do that.
Yeah.
For me.
It's kind of surreal because I sit here, we're at episode 100 of this podcast, which I started during COVID on a whim from a board of directors that said, hey, be a great idea to maybe we start doing those podcasts since you can't get out and, we can't penetrate the media. It's all COVID in the news. This is how we can talk to people and learn and grow. And then I think back further to 2008 when my mom started this organization. And I think of this idea that for my mom, it was about everything you just wrote right here. It was about building veterans, supporting veterans, making sure that veterans felt like they had a community and a place to go. And when she would explain her vision for what she thought the Travis Manion Foundation could be, I think I never said it, but I doubted her. I doubted that she or we would be able to do that, right?
Yeah.
And so, but always encouraged, because for my dad and I've said this before many times, we saw this organization as a way for a grieving mother to channel the loss of her only son by giving back. We knew that she would do some good. My mom was tenacious. She was hardworking.
Yeah.
But being tenacious and hardworking doesn't mean you're going to create a national organization, right? With hundreds of thousands of people. Yeah. There's a lot of tenacious, hardworking people out there. And I often think, like, well, what was it? Why did the Travis Manion Foundation become what it is today? And I think the power is in the people and the community and the people that are a part of it, right? And you're it. Like, you are the pinnacle of that. You are the example of, like, what we espouse our community looks like. And it's just so full circle for me to have you sitting here sharing your story. And it just feels like it's bringing everything around for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
I can't tell you how special it is that you're here.
Well, ditto.
Yeah.
I mean, having the outlet to tell the story and talk about the organization that means so much to me is huge.
And I think it kind of gets back to this idea where you said, you know, President Bush said to you, like, it's an honor.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you're like, no, it's my honor.
Yeah.
And that's really how I feel sitting with you today. Like, it's such an honor to have you here sitting with me and sharing and being so vulnerable.
Yeah.
So if you were trying to decide if you accomplished the idea and act of being vulnerable through the Spartan Leadership Program, I can tell you that you have succeeded.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
As we close out today, I'd love to know if there's anything you'd like to share. If there's any, like, this is your platform. What, and it's a broad question, but like, what do you want our viewers, our listeners to know about you, about life, about anything? You know, the floor is yours.
Commit to something hard. And commit, really, really commit. The triple bypass ride was a suggestion of my buddy in Colorado when I was going through chemo, and I told him he was freaking out of his mind.
Explain what that was.
Okay, so the triple bypass is a road bike ride. It's a century, so it's a 100+ mile ride. It's point to point in Colorado between Evergreen and Avon, and it's not really the distance per se. It's identified as one of the hardest centuries in the country and arguably in parts of the world, because the average altitude is over 8,000 feet. You climb a total of 10,800 feet on the ride, and you do 3 major climbs. The penultimate one, the middle one, being crossing Loveland Pass, which is at 11,990 feet. It takes the pros and climbing specialists just under 8 hours to finish. If you're me, it takes 14 hours and 52 minutes to finish. But with the help of friends, with a good training plan, with the help, I had 5 members of Cohort 5 traveled to Colorado from all over the country to be there for me and with me and Darcy for that day. Plus 2 TMF staffers came out. Grace and Kat both came out from the Mid-Atlantic. That support network only came together because I decided to do a really freaking hard thing. Yeah. And I committed to it. And there was a growth. There were, in training, there were 2 very dark places that I went to that I never want to go to again. But they were this concept of is it misogi? You're going to misogi. Talk about this in a future episode, I hope.
Yeah, so it's the idea of do something hard, and there's only two rules: make sure it's hard and don't die. Right? Yeah, and you have a 50% chance of failing.
Yeah.
And don't die.
So but the growth spurt comes only when you commit to something like that. You have to go to a really dark place to realize that you are stronger in every way imaginable than you could possibly believe. But it's only when you commit to something hard. And I'd love to say it was my idea. It wasn't my idea. When Sean suggested it, like I told him he was out of his mind. There's no way I could do that. But, we committed to it and we did do it. So that's my overall message is here's the real message, Ryan. Don't wait for a catastrophic diagnosis to realize that every day matters and make the most of them. What are you going to do with them? Where's the purpose? Where's the engagement? Where's the meaning? Cultivate the relationships. Make the little accomplishments that all, combine to help you thrive. It's part of that, well-being chemistry. The only way to do that is to realize whatever health you're in, bad or good, every day matters. Commit to the hard thing and remember that no matter what happens to you, you get to decide. You get to choose how to react.
And I think we all can decide to be cheerful warriors, right?
Yeah, damn right.
Yeah. I always end my episodes by asking people what it means to live a resilient life. I don't think I'm going to ask you that question, Matt, because I think you demonstrate what it means to live a resilient life. Like, if you listened to this episode, you know what it means. You know how Matt lives a resilient life. You're incredible.
Thank you. It's really cool to be here and have this chat.
It's, I knew it was going to be special, but I did not realize how special it was going to be. Celebrating our 100th episode with, you're one of my personal heroes. Oh, it's incredible.
Thank you.
And this is my challenge. 5 years, 1 day from diagnosis, you're coming back on this show.
I'll be here.
Okay.
I'll be upright.
Let's do it.
Thanks.
Matt, thank you so much.